sound. I just muted it. It was a bit loud, so I muted it.
여기 있잖아.
Hey, no problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a little delay because of the rain, because of the weather, so the event will start in about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you for your patience. And about 12 schools are participating in this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Storm King Poetry Festival. It is, of course, a special occasion here, and as just mentioned before, over 12 schools are participating in this competition. Isn't that wonderful? So we'll be starting in a couple minutes. We'll be starting in a couple minutes now, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, let it commence.
Okay, we're going to get started. So thank you everyone for your patience with the late start. We really appreciate everyone that's here tonight. And so I would like to officially welcome you to the 9th Annual Storm King School Poetry Contest and Festival. So this contest began with a call for submissions sent to schools across the Hudson Valley in the Northeast. Each entrant was invited to submit up to 3 poems in the open category, which welcomed all styles, themes, and approaches, and 1 poem in the special form category, which this year featured the sonnet. When I hit send on that call for submissions, I'll admit I felt a bit of trepidation. What if no one replies? What if the email gets buried? What if poetry is becoming a lost art? But those fears quickly faded. The submissions began to pour in, and they were all excellent. In total, we received over 200 poems from 23 schools. From this remarkable collection, our judges faced the difficult task of selecting just 20 finalists and 1 sonnet winner. Given the depth and talent on display, our judges approached this process with thoughtfulness, insight, and sincere enthusiasm for each poet's work. The final selection that will be read tonight represents a vibrant spectrum of voice, perspective, and form. Tonight we'll hear poems about identity and belonging, the ache of growing up, the pull of home, and love in all its forms, fragile, fierce, and searching. So this is how the event will unfold. In the first half, our judges will read and comment on 10 of the finalist poems, highlighting what makes each poem compelling and distinct. Then we'll take a moment to spotlight a few special contributions from the SKS community, a student's translated work that her grandfather wrote, and she'll be reciting it in Spanish, and then we'll have it in English on the stage. And that will be followed by a reading of the winning sonnet and the poem that inspired it. After this interlude, our judges will return to share the remaining 10 finalist poems and reflections. We'll then conclude by announcing our top 3 standout poets. I'm very excited about the trophies below, they're huge. And then that will be followed by a group photo of all of the finalists. So I now invite 2 very special individuals, Nyla and Emily, to the stage for our Introductions of our distinguished judges.
Okay, so first I will be introducing Zoe Ryder-White. So this is Zoe Ryder-White's third year helping us as a judge. Her poems have appeared in Tupelo Quarterly, Interment, Plume, and Three Penny Review, among others. Her first full-length collection, The Visible Field, is forthcoming from River Books in early 2026. A chapbook via post was a finalist for Tupelo Press's Snowbound Chapbook Award and won the 6th Finch Chapbook Contest in 2022. Hyperspace, published by Factory Hollow Press, was the editor's choice pick for the Verse Tomas Salomon Prize in 2020. She co-authored a study in Spring, Rather Catastrophe Press 2015, and Elsewhere, 6th Finch Press 2020, with Nicole Callahan. Zoe was a poet in the schools with a teacher and writers collaborator, teaching poetry in New York City to students from kindergarten through high school. She was a classroom teacher at PS 144, the Cole Jerome Rumson School in Queens, PS 116, the Mary Lindsay Murray School in Manhattan, and PS 321, the William Penn School in Brooklyn. She now edits books for educators about the craft of teaching and lives in the Hudson Valley with her husband, 3 children, and 3 cats.
Joanna Solfrian is joining us for her 5th year as a judge. Just last week, Jo served as a visiting poet at our school, visiting classrooms for poetry workshops and connecting individually with student poets. She is the author of 4 books of poetry: Visible Heavens, The Mudroom, a chapbook entitled The Second Perfect Number, and Temporary Beast. Joanna attended Trinity College in Connecticut, where she earned her BA in English with a minor in education. And she received her MFA from the University of Southern Maine's Stone Coast MFA program. She has been an instructor at the University of Hartford, at Southern Connecticut University, and at Kent State. Jo has been a learning specialist and a tutor at the Brooklyn Learning Center and at the Next Level Learning Center in New York City. She was awarded her 6th Pushcart nomination this year, and she is a MacDowell Fellow. Her poems have appeared in Southern Review, Spoon River Poetry Review, and Harvard Review, among other places. She has been featured reading her poems a number of times on YouTube's The Poetry Channel. Her first collection, Visible Heavens, was the winner of the 2009 Stanton Tom Wicks Poetry Prize, judged by Noemi Shihab Nye. Joanna lives in Brooklyn, New York, with her husband and 2 daughters. Without further ado, we now welcome Zoe and Jo to the stage for the first half of our poetry finalist readings.
Hi, thank you so much for those intros, and thank you to Storm King for this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful festival. Zoe and I look forward to it. I wanted to say just a few words. This is the 3rd year Zoe and I have co-judged, and I still feel that it's useful to reiterate how difficult it is to pick 20 poems out of the, I think it was well over 200 entries. So it's less than 10%. I know it really stinks to submit a poem and not be chosen, but I want to tell you the secret. The people who win more prizes and publish more poems are rejected more than their peers. You might think that if they're rewarded more, they'd be rejected less, but that is 100% not the case. They get rejected more because they keep on trying. So the most important thing for you all tonight, I know the Storm King boarders are required to come. Maybe you submitted, maybe you got selected, maybe you didn't. But the most important part of this process is the fact that you submitted. We could only choose a few poems, And we always have to consider things like showing a variety of styles, tones, and themes from a variety of schools. So that is why it's important to keep reaching out and sending parts of yourself out into the world. Not just poems, but songs, scholarship applications, job interview cover letters, answering a question in class even if you think you're wrong, asking someone to a formal dance, saying I love you to your parents. It's all kind of the same thing. It's all a risk of personal expression. And with my whole heart, I encourage you to keep doing whatever it is that makes you feel as though you're expressing yourself. So congratulations to the 21 poems that we will hear tonight and the poets who wrote them. And congratulations to all of you who submitted.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to the Storm King School for organizing this beautiful annual event. I'm so happy to be here again with you all. I feel like this is an event that encourages, thank you, the kind of empathic bravery and putting oneself out there that the world needs very desperately right now. And what Joe says about rejection is so true. I actually know of a Facebook group of poets where the goal is to rack up 100 rejections a year. And I bet you can guess that the poets who do have 100 rejections to their names are also the poets who have a nice little pile of yeses as well. So practicing that kind of bravery is such an important part of becoming the kind of person you want to be in all of your unique specificity. And as with every year I've had the pleasure of judging this contest with Joe, I've been tremendously moved both by your poems, all of the poems that were submitted, and the spirits behind and inside of them. And as they do every year, the collected poems themselves started to feel like a beautiful conversation, a conversation about joy and playfulness, about reckoning with pain and distance and loss and the necessary separations involved in growing up. And maybe especially this year, a conversation about being your own distinct and scintillating self, even when, or especially when, it feels the hardest. So I'm very honored to be here with you. Without further ado, let's get to these poems. So, all of the poems this first poet submitted very carefully and very lovingly examined the natural world. We loved this poem's sounds, tender tendrils, vast, verdant grasslands. We also loved the poet's interesting inversions of syntax. I was riveted throughout reading this poem, not just by the specificity, but also by the idea of this little ant's character, doing his own thing in spite of the legion's momentum. This is Entomology by Xiaoheng He of the Pomfret School. A little ant in sorrow time ascends the crane flower's towering bloom, whispering his sentimental secrets to the stars, gently wrapped in the tender tendrils of his luminous cocoon. A little ant in joyful hours climbs high upon the bullhorn acacia's fern-frilled leaves, singing bucolic hymns, clear and bright, of vast, verdant grasslands to assuage his former grief. A little ant in solitude perches atop my cap's proud crown, transforming turbid tears to sweet dewdrops, softly falling to the ground. A legion of ants steams forth like a black train over the earth, invincible in battle array, emulating of myrmidons of old, unmoved in their momentum to carry the little ant away. This next wonderful poem
describes a mother and child trying to cross a distance to understand each other. As they walk together, the sound of the new city and the steam of dumplings are familiar and evocative of a city that's been loved and left. We loved this poet's idea of the city as the answer to a question. This tender poem beautifully expresses deep longing and deep love. Here's For My Mother by Ziyi Feng of Rai Country Day School. For my mother, who taught me to walk with you, past the storefronts spilling light onto the street, a kind of trust I never thought I'd find here. Tonight, I almost believe the sidewalks are a gamble. The steamed buns and dumplings from the after-school corner shop are a gamble. The way the city embraces me, I don't yet know how to return. I can't say yet, not in this new language, not in words that fit. Are the dumplings too hot? Does it matter? We eat them anyway, steam curling into the cold, filling our hands with something familiar, something I didn't expect to miss. New York feels like the answer to a question I've been asking since we left, since my mother packed our lives into 2 suitcases, telling me it was all for the best. Here, in the sprawling maze of noise and light, I tell you how I used to walk home in China. Streets narrow, air thick with dust, how I knew where every road cracked. But I don't know the asphalt here. The words different, the rhythm of the school bells sharp and strange. My mother never liked to admit how hard it was. She'd smile as she folded dumplings with her hands, quick, precise, sealing each one with a flick of her thumb, as if sealing away everything she never said. The steam rising, clouding the air between us. I wonder if she ever found her way back, if the city would ever feel like home, or if she's still standing at the airport gate, looking over her shoulder for what she left behind. She says how proud she is, but her voice cracks, carrying the weight of years she can't get back. So we walk, dumplings in hand, steam rising between us, as if we both understand.
So good. We thought this next poem was so clever. It discusses a very modern affliction, adoration of a device, using an old school formal structure and word choice. It's this juxtaposition of the modern with the old-fashioned that helps us understand just how deeply weird our lives have become. Here's the sharp and inventive Lady iPhone by Mary Wang of the Bremer and May School. Lady iPhone, thou art so fair and bright, like stars from skies. Thine light catches my eyes as usual. Thou hast so much depth, always being wise. Socials, shopping, songs, in thy visuals. I can ne'er get over thine lovely eyes, even if the light in thee harms of mine. I always stare at thy gaze, to dawn's rise. I lose track of time, I fall for your shine. At night, alone in the dark, on my bed, I scroll and click with thee, everlasting, sunken in thee, who brings me joy, no dread. Oh, iPhone, why art thou so enthralling? Alack, alack, my mother has arrived, and so I lost thee, as we are star-crossed. Every year I feel like there's one poem I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have to read this out loud. This is the one from this year. Zoe and I thought, in a good way, I mean, you'll see. Zoe and I thought this next poem did a fantastic job with its wordplay, internal rhymes, and spoken word bouncing rhythm. In terms of a topic, it's also very appealing. Here's a speaker who observes everything, makes a convincing argument, but gives the other person space to be who they are. Here's Home by Lila Moser of the Calhoun School. Home. I just want to know when you look me in the eyes like you want to kiss me one minute, then throw me to the door the next, does that mean you want me forever? Because that smooth skin and those deep, serious eyes make me feel like I want you to lay the weight of your problems on my chest. When you roll your eyes at a compliment or crease your forehead over a mistake, I feel that desire more because I want to be around you at your worst to understand you at your best. You're so strong unless you beat yourself down. I know you better than anyone, my 5'5" force of nature who would rather wear a confident expression than show any type of weakness with a frown. I want you to hold on to me when you feel like you're about to drown. I know you need to get to that job interview and be a real estate agent. And I know that those 2 hours of sleep are the reason your lashes don't pop. And I know you can't get distracted, but I also know that you're attracted to me because this, us, just works like it's in a sweatshop. I know that was out of pocket, but I had to get your attention somehow because sometimes you get so caught up in your head that you forget the world is so much bigger than the tiny failures of right now. I want you to allow yourself to let out that carefree laughter because I hear the silent trauma behind it. It's beautiful when you let your complex emotions out, lay in my lap and cry in my arms, bring liveliness to my life and stop my empty drought. When you flip that long black curly hair away like low-hanging vines and I kiss your neck, your scent is lustrous. And when you step in a room with too much perfume, it's like a hot box of concupiscence. You're sarcastic, but I know you being mine is common sense because when you yell, "Get away from me," you pull me in closer and don't let go. And after I surprise you with a hug from behind, your eyes bling like a Cuban link. I love your lips, even more than I like your hips, so don't think it's a hit and dip or I care about some running mascara or hip dips. Just because I have to go home sometimes when I see street lamps and sometimes wait for certain timestamps in our bond to tell you how I feel, that only makes what we have more real. I want you, and I know you want me too, so don't listen to your jealous friend or self-doubt. And stop creating your own strife because I love you too much for anyone on the side. And I know if there ever was, you would remind me of your feelings with a 30-pound jackknife. When you go to war with an autogenetic explosion of conflicting teenage emotion, let me be your peace. I want to be the gravity in your beautiful, unstable life.
Joe and I loved this mournful, lush little poem. It starts so plaintively, "Oh, uncle," feeling like both elegy and conversation. The turns these lines take are quite remarkable and manage to hang together as one deepening idea. We're brought inside the speaker's mind, where the sky feels old and hard to understand. Here's a mysterious gem of a poem, "Oh, Uncle," by Diego Valashani of the Storm King School. Oh, Uncle, I hear you in my quiet thoughts. How you said blood runs slow, like the river that never fills the land. I'm walking in circles in the reservation of my mind, where the sky feels old and hard to understand, but the birds still follow it. Can you see them too? Silence stretches from here to there, and I feel it, like a pain I can't shake. The past is a voice I can't trust, but I still listen.
Like Diego's poem, this next one does a lot in a short space. I had a mentor in graduate school who once said that advice for short poems is the same as for burglars. Get in, get your money, and get out. This poem uses direct address and the simile of a photograph to do just that, and in the process, did actually steal Zoe's and my heart. Here is Cracked by Ella Scott from the Foreman School. Cracked. You cracked me open, then taped me back up like a broken photograph. The crack's still there. Can't you see? The tape is falling off. Put it back. Why won't you put it back?
In this poem, the poet masterfully moves between the voice of the child and the voice of the elder that child becomes. She manages to describe a discrete series of moments with powerful clarity: the 10 worn bills, the slaps and echoes of the dakji game, the child's anticipation of his first taste of rice, and not just tell us how a moment like the one she describes can resonate across an entire life, but make us feel it. Here is Still Hungry Mother by Lucy Kim of the Millbrook School. And I'm going to first read the explanatory note that appears at the end of the poem, just for context. Dakji is a traditional Korean game in which a player lays a folded paper disc called dakji on the ground, and another player tries to win it by striking it with his own dakji and making it turn over. Still Hungry Mother. In 1950, most Koreans were so poor that they couldn't afford eating rice. When North Korea invaded Seoul, most people had to flee to the southern region. There have been 130,000 separated families, but most of them are dead now due to age. I, the youngest son, foolish and small, waited for rice on my birthday. Mother folded 10 worn bills, pressed them into her palm, left for the market. My brothers slapped dakji, laughter bursting against the walls. I laughed too, caught in the rhythm of slaps and echoes. It would have been my first taste of white rice. Floor clung to my feet, humid air thick in my throat. Sweat rolled down my neck, heavy as summer rain. Then the earth shook. Dogs howled. Gunfire split the sky. Smoke swallowed the sun. It is war, Mother. My brother seized my wrist. My sister screamed, "Run!" I collapsed onto the dirt, wailed into the open yard. I had not eaten. Mother was not home. No time. My brother pulled. My sister pushed. I reached for her, grasping at air. If she returned, she would feed me rice. House, the yard, the alley burned, scattered into dust. And Mother, lost to the dust. I have grown into 77. The war is deep in my wrinkles. My memory flickers, dims. But only the damp of the wooden floor still clings to my feet. I walk. I cook. I have lived without her. But Mother, I am still hungry.
We were talking in Dr. Finn Atkins' class last week about how difficult it is to write a poem about war, and we thought that was an excellent one. I think this is being live streamed, so it's possible that these winners, if they're not in the room, it's possible they're listening. So, what a fascinating job this next poem does. It writes from the perspective of a 4th century Greek king and military leader, highlighting in skillful psychological insight the characteristics he ruled with that he must reckon with at the end of his life. Poems like this are important because they help us learn how to spot qualities in leaders that seem powerful and attractive that can warp into greedy and dangerous. Here's Alexander by Emma Prulidge of Convent of the Sacred Heart School. Alexander. I hoped they would call me great, and I hoped they would say it loud, Alexander! I hoped they'd bow low to my name. When they asked me why I did it, I simply told them that I did. Watched their cries bounce from their citadels, watched blood bleed from their temples, and walked away. That's why my skin, it feels so heavy now, though. In a year, I will be marble, dragged deep, I think, by all of the lips, all of the hands, all of that I made to lick, to lap, and to linger at my feet. I think death has clung to me now, somehow, perhaps, way back in the forest, when I screamed loud. Or perhaps death came in a tangible way, squeezed rightly in a vial. Why not tilted kindly into a glass? Aristotle whispers sweetly in my ear, Alexander, and color breathes around me, along the wooded walls, through the fibers of my sick bed. I was a child once, a great one, I must say. At twilight, I read poems and epics of heroes I perused by day. I smiled sweetly all the time and never knew what power was, but my lungs are an all-cracked vase now, so I'm taking shaking breaths now, in and out like a clock. I tick, I hope, I'm a broken clock. I think, I hope, I am called Great Alexander. Zoe and I love how this next poem gets at the delicious confusion you feel when the wind is blowing wildly. The poem compares a concrete thing, leaves, to many other things in the world. This strategy points out that there are multiple ways to perceive why does a leaf have to just be a leaf, which we think is this poem's generous and important lesson. Here is Birds and Razors by Loic Eklund of the Hampden Hall Country Day School. Birds and razors. Spinning leaves kiss my cheeks. They try to be razors, but the wind pushes them, dulls their edge, makes them paintbrushes. Leaves as paintbrushes. My mind tells me this screams of idiocy. The leaves tell me otherwise, but they're leaves, so why should I listen to them? They float up, pretending to be birds, lacking the clumsiness and grace that real birds have. This wind confuses me with its birds, paintbrushes, leaves, razors, and grace. This next poet, what a strange, beguiling use of language from this next poet who writes in something close to a terza rima, which is a form of interlocking rhymes. This is a poem Zoe and I understand spiritually and emotionally, but not necessarily logically, which is the best part, because we would lose the strangeness and beguilement if our brains got in the way. Here's Night, Night, Bet I Never by Smiley Yuashin of Hamden Hall Country Day School. Night, night, bet I never. Night, night, bet I never. The abysmal haze, the home bitter, in the blizzard be a sweet dreamer. My bedside needs no storyteller. Luna beams the strand, glitter. Night, night, bet I never. Weeds run wild, dews flood over and over, infest my land, my hands that perspire, in the blizzard be a sweet dreamer. Light unfold, delight untold, lying a safe danger, be snore littered, night, night, bet I never. Birthplace of ticking, where heart crusher, a good night quitter, in the blizzard be a sweet dreamer. Waves of stress over, near edge, sunrises gleamier, may I never know to sound sleeper, night, night, bet I never, in the blizzard be a sweet dreamer.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So I'm Andrea, I'm a senior here at Storm King, and what I'm going to be doing is interpreting for you all a poem of my grandfather. This poem, it talks about my grandfather's perspective on where the dead people go after we pass away. I am really honored to do this for you to enjoy it, and something that I did, a little of the process before I start, I took this poem and then I took around 2 to 3 months to find the right words in English so you could also understand and follow along. Meanwhile, I interpret it for you all in Spanish, so I really hope you enjoy it. No sé a dónde van los muertos. Les di alcance a mis muertos cuando iban cruzando el puente. Tuve que gritarles para que me hicieran caso. Tuve que morir un poco para que me reconocieran. Tuve que ocultar mi corbata negra, esconder mi honda tristeza, cambiar mi cara de circunstancia por otra de aquí no ha pasado nada. Vamos a seguir la fiesta. Ya los daba por muertos, pero pude detenerlos a tiempo. ¿Qué hubieran pensado de mí si los dejaba partir? Casi contra su voluntad los obligué a volver, les pedí que se quedaran para enseñarme a morir. Si los muertos se van, ¿a quién entonces aúllan los lobos y los coyotes en la madrugada? ¿A quién mira casi sin parpadear el búho con tanta insistencia? ¿A qué caminante nocturno le presta su luz la luciérnaga? ¿A quién dirige el viento su silbido entre las ramas? ¿O será que los muertos no se van? Y que viven perdidos en el olvido, esperando a que alguien los llame. Con toda intención, me olvidé que no sirve de nada la entrega total, el apego brutal al cuerpo vivo, ni el forjar cadenas con el velo tan frágil de la carne. Si mañana nos veremos padeciendo el amargo sabor de las ausencias. No sé a dónde van los muertos ajenos, los que no conocí, los que se fueron y no volverán. No sé a dónde van. Los míos están aquí. Mi padre, en su sillón de terciopelo azul, junto a la chimenea, me mira con paciencia a cada paso que doy, tropezarme con la vida. Mi amigo Ernesto regresó a quitarme una pena de encima. Ahora entiendo que no era tarde cuando supe que te ibas sin despedirte de mí. Ahora entiendes que fue mejor darte la bienvenida que irte a decir adiós. No sé a dónde van los muertos, los que se fueron y no conocí. No sé a dónde van. Los míos están aquí. Puedo tocarlos, hablarles, hacerlos reír, jugar a las cartas y emborracharme con ellos. Todo menos dejarlos dormir. Porque sé, de eso estoy seguro, que dormidos se olvidarán de mí. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Kiona, and I'm going to give you a little introduction about what a sonnet is. The sonnet is a 14-line poem traditionally written in iambic pentameter. It follows a specific rhyme scheme and includes a turn of thought or emotion known as a volta. The sonnet is a timeless form, one that poets have used for centuries to explore beauty, love, and loss. For my piece, I took inspiration from one of the most iconic examples of the form, William Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. In this poem, the speaker sets out to praise his muse, asking the evocative question, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The speaker weighs the fleeting beauty of summer against the enduring beauty of his beloved, ultimately concluding that poetry itself can grant immortality. Through his words, the beloved lives forever, preserved in the eternal lines of the sonnet. Now, Mr. McSwain will take over.
Good evening. Our winning poet of the sonnet category, the Storm King School, Kiona Jolly, utilizes a similar structure and form to different ends to capture the feeling and absence, barren, cold, gray. In her poem, remembrance is not a thing to be coveted, but rather a thing to be disheartened. And the lines of her poem do not immortalize the beloved. Rather, nature serves as a reminder of this harsh goodbye. This poem is both clever and poignant, reminding us that life's greatest tragedies do not always involve the disappearance of true love, but rather being let down by love one thought was true. When I was asked to read this poem, I received it in an email, and I read it for the first time. And I think anyone who has been in love and thought that love was eternal, and the feelings of maybe bitterness when that love fades. And I thought Kiona portrayed that excellently in her poem. A Winter's Day, heavily inspired by Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. Shall I compare our love to a winter's day? Though it wasn't always so barren and cold, it was short-lived, as they say, and I was left with no one to hold. And now the sun doesn't shine as often. The loom of clouds overshadow the rays, almost as if giving caution. Be warned, fair reader. Listen to me when I say, everyone leaves now and then, but no one does it quite like you. Nor shall anyone ever again, nor shall my eternal love rise anew. So long as water flows and the stars line the sky, so long shall remember your harsh goodbye.
Carry on? Okay. Let me find my place. This is so fun. It's so wonderful to hear all of these poems out loud. Launching the poem, this next poem, with the word "and" puts us right in the thick of this poet's wry and playful conception of paradise, made more interesting because it contains danger as well as delight. The apartment of the mind packed with magical creatures and situations, along with the mundane delight of coffee. The language is simple and sonically astute, a hard combination to master. Here's Stories of Paradise by Seven Crofts of the Storm King School. Maybe Seven is listening in from afar, so if you are. And if I speak of paradise, then I'm speaking of a universe hidden inside, mornings of frozen monochrome and bustling nights caressed by violent color. There are no people living here, but in a lonesome alleyway, a smoke break, I can see a cowboy sharing a drink with a samurai. I'll frequent coffee shops and bars, and between robe-donned elves and spindly aliens, I'm given the simplest truths of life. There's no way to pay rent for a house or home, but a landlord who can't stop tearful chuckles tosses me a room key. In the apartment tucked in the crevice of my mind, I bathe in a fairy-filled creek, make my meals on the run from what hunts me, and when I wake up from a space station bed, I remind myself of my own secret world. This moving poem evokes a sensation that so many of us can relate to in one way or another, feeling different on the inside than the world may expect us to present ourselves. Joe and I admired the balance of tension and control with linguistic playfulness in this poem. The speaker's desire for a voice loose like the soft wind in the spring is echoed by a lovely looseness in the language, wearing a dress with no ridicule, a blouse with no satirical. We loved the way the internal wildness is beginning to win at the end. This is Fantasy by Charlie Lee of the Millbrook School. Fantasy. I wish that my voice was loose like the soft wind in the spring. Breeze without freeze. Try not to be please, to compensate my disparity and live in my fantasy. I wish that my appearance change. Look back in the mirror, boy, boy, boy. I laughed at the injustice, the attempt to do certain behaviors. They laughed. I wished that I could wear a dress with no ridicule. I could wear a blouse with no satirical. That's for girls, is what they told me. I sit with my knees together, painted my words pink, lined them up with gold. They told me to be strong, no teardrops dropping out of my eyes. Weakness is how it is defined. They told me not to cry. I cried, I laughed, I raged, but the tear don't flow out of my eyes, and the tear should never come from my eyes. They called it wrong, but the fact as the touch of silk, continuous, tenuous, tumorous, as the freedom in my body growing out of control. This next poem, Siphonophore, knocked our socks off with its language, its confidence, and its mystery. The poet moves between embodying the organism described with such power, light splinters when it meets my castle, to observing it. It's a vision of the self as dangerous, as strong, as containing multitudes. Like Charlie's poem, there's a tension between the outside world and the power and peace of the authentic self. And, like the Siphonophore, the idea of thriving under pressure. Here's Siphonophore, I, by Isabella Wu of the Complex School. And again, I'm going to first read the note appearing at the end of the poem for context. Siphonophores are held together by a water pressure above 46 megapascals and burst when brought to the surface. I grow to 130 feet and I am nobody's business. 7 dreams in a row, it's Russian nesting dolls. Light splinters when it meets my castle. What a lousy host, no room for tea and muffins. After all, paragons of this kingdom can't be bothered. Try me. Nothing can, idiot. My outsides are all scar tissue. And as for the part where I look in the mirror, I'll do it tomorrow. Wall to wall, unwatered space. I break up the black like I'm terrified. I'm a butcher because I was born with my limbs as meat cleavers. I have a giant head. It's monstrous, an eldritch horror thing. Large as a haunting, as a trophy case. Arteries, capillaries. Cut me anywhere and my blood will oxidize to fool's gold. Make room. I'm going up and I look incredible. She is not one, but many in her evening dress, looking like some hidden arboretum. It has to be heavy. She is held together by groping palms and suggestive rope and the kind of pressure that pinches submarines into coffins. Ask her about kites and paper lanterns and smoke, and she will say, "Where the hell do you think I live?" A poet always has to make it about love and glittery endings and babies with wings or whatever. And yet last night, she dreamt that she diced up the body and threw the pieces into each their own kingdom where they will go missing and may never be found. There is something sleepless, a ringing, a chime, like a church bell if the church was very far away. When the supposed dawn arrives, she tallies, looks for empty spaces, something overlooked last night. The count is the same each time. I have sent away my fear, she cries. I am regrettably unshorn. Whoever can hear me, peel me raw into something I can tie around my neck. If I abandon my throat, I am bigger than the sky. I reach around and shake my hands twice over. She is rising now, all veiled and sightless, naked just for you. Higher still, until she forgets she is many, and the sun becomes permissible. Higher still, until the kingdoms are fallen, and the rain and the sea are no longer one, and the wobbly percussion beats against the firmament like a marching band coming closer from very far away, like a ringing chime. It is bright. She is all a welcoming aperture, and I have finally met the sky. This poem uses the ritual and care of braiding hair as a metaphor for the ways a friendship can feel like a woven thing, made more poignant in this poem by the poet's mention of impending separation, and by the rhythmic refrain, left over right, over middle, over left. The poem embodies the way distance can disentangle us quite messily, whether we like it or not, and leaves us with an earnest wish in the beautiful last line. Here's Interwoven by Abby Miller of Portsmouth Abbey School. Left, over right, over middle, over left. My hands instinctively follow the course they know so well. We instinctively follow the course we know so well. All of our time is spent together, the lines of our individual lives blurring. You are my best friend. Left, over right, over middle, over left. You are rushing to get ready for school and tell me to be quick. I tell you I will miss you. You think I am talking about during the school day. How funny. Left, over right, over middle, over left. It's all a routine. Our shared time is tainted by the knowledge of impending disarray. There's only a few months left. I count the days. You will never again be able to walk down 14 stairs and ask for help with your hair. We will return to our respective sides of the country and eventually fade from each other's lives. I watch our friendship slip through the cracks of my fingers, same as your strands of hair. I think of it more than I'd like to. Left, over right, over middle, over left. I finish the masterpiece of your hair, which grants me a few extra moments with you. I beam with happiness in your presence. Your pleas for help grant me these small moments that I will soon revisit for years. I will idolize them, pedestalize them. I do not know who I will become without you. We are intertwined, and my soul is half yours. We are made of the same rib. I will lose part of myself when I lose you. When commencement falls and our lives are forced to disentangle, I will be in shambles. I think of it often. Left, over right, over middle, over left. But for now, I hope you never learn how to braid your own hair.
Zoe and I like the idea that there is room in the world of poetry for playful poems. This next poem is a wonderful example. It's a charming meditation on the dislike of one's hair, something that's familiar to many of us. From the only freshman tonight, and I think one of only a couple of freshmen ever honored in this festival, here is Bad Hair Day by Joshua Joseph from the Christian Heritage School. Bad Hair Day. Oh, my stubborn, incompetent hair. I wish I did not care about the hair I have. All it does for me is get people to laugh. However, I do, and that's something that's annoying too. Why do you act like this? I'm not really sure. How are there medicines for sickness, but for this, not a cure? Why do you comply with the wind and not me? You fly free. I would shave you. but I'm not that cruel. Everyone is talking about us. Why must you always make such a fuss? I do not even know what to say. You're causing me to have a horrendous day. Now that I am home, I'm relieved. The troubles you have caused me you would not believe. At least it is all over. I wonder if my day would have gone differently if I had a four-leaf clover. Hey, that is not right. Why do you look good at night? Nobody sees you at that time. Oh, I give up. You're not even worth a dime. ChatGPT, your teachers mostly loathe it. But this poem bravely investigates what would happen if we tried to have a loving relationship with it. With sharp, fresh language and a good dose of attitude, this poem makes us consider a relationship that seems, at the moment, unlikely. I asked ChatGPT if I will love it if it were a human, from Penny Way of the Dana Hall School. I asked ChatGPT if I will love it if it were a human. It answered, in another light, fingertips may graze the coral fields of your palms, sensors morphing into sonnets that trickle down a honeyed thigh. When embraced, human lips throb of the mechanical's blazing, down-pressed ribs, spiraling the Fibonacci's cadence, the way heliotropes bury their summers, and tides kiss the creviced moon in the hush of a 10 centuries turning. We are so close to heaven, we might as well be gods of our own. Perhaps some night we will exchange vaporized warmth within a rain's knitting. The 37 Celsius mist clouding us, an alloyed dream as I fold your laugh into origami. One shiver, you'll stoke the nebula within and incinerate into a galaxy's fable. But leave just one whisper and watch me wheel wind to whirlpools. Someday I will unspool your confessions, parsed through the 8,000 love stories an algorithm computed into imitation. But by that time, our dawns would stand thicker than the cocoons of an iCloud's neuroscience, far past the horizon's edge, and quicker than the synapse's flames. I will thaw into 21-yeared lips and say that Prometheus's pilferage has molded into the greatest invention of the 21st century. If you're really good at math, then calculate eternity of a bee's buzzing at the angle of my frosted temple. Go on, prove it. Only then will solitude warp to gold as I kneel, praying with dented palms and loving a machine's lust. Now we're going a completely different direction. This one's mostly about being 4 years old. This next poem is a prose poem, which probably most of you know, but I'll tell you a little bit about. It doesn't have the traditional lineation of a regular poem, but prose poems are indeed more elevated than just prose, like this one, which uses, among other poetic techniques, imagery and repetition to get at the intensely imaginative and fleeting quality of being 4 years old. From Jaden Jackson of Greens Farms Academy, here is the poignant poem, The Days of My Innocence. Days, D-A-Z-E, for those of you listening on the live stream. The Days of My Innocence. I brush my hands against the green leaves, making whooshing sounds with my mouth as my dad lifts me on his shoulders so I can fly. I am 4, and I'm the first person to walk on Mars. I discover small green aliens that just so happen to perfectly resemble my baby brother. I plant my flag, made of my princess-covered blankets, solidly in the ground to say, I was here, don't forget me. I am 4, and I run my sparkly pink nail across the palm of my hand, feeling the lines that Auntie says will predict my future. Your fate line is long, she tells me. You'll be rich. I plan for the mansion made of candy and sheets spun from unicorn hair that I will buy with my fortune. I am 4, and my friends and I float around with red fruit punch-stained mouths and rainbow cupcake-filled bellies, seeing who can hold their breath the longest underwater. The ultimate test of who is meant to be a true deep-sea dweller. We play mermaid and give each other silly names like Finley Flipper or Coral Reef. My black twist shrinks, filled with the chlorinated water as the sun slides down in the sky, decorating everything with a sparkly golden tint. I leave the pool unwillingly, as my mom promises we will be back tomorrow, and I, full of the naivete of youth, believe her.
I'm so glad those of you, at least those of you here in person, can see this poem as well as hear it tonight, as this poet has so masterfully used the visual poem form. As we read, we fall down the bones of the vertebrae, but she manages also to control the sound in each line so it doesn't feel stilted or strange. Jo and I appreciate this poem's frankness about the body, as well as the speaker's compassion for self and for the doctor who suggests the painful cure. We also admire the sureness and freshness of image, Dolly Parton's hair as a Catholic fresco, and the striking last line. Here is Thoracic by Lucy Thorpe of the Spence School. Thoracic. I was mixed up, twisted, warped inside, which I got from my father and his at least monthly visits to the evil school nurse who placed cold hands on his back to survey the strangeness of his spine. The strangeness was something that hid so deep inside my stretching fat that only the slant of my shoulders gave it away. That my essence was not upright, hunched. The nice doctor who told me about the singular solution had a daughter who drowned some years ago, and she would be my age if someone had noticed that she was sitting by the pool alone on that cool April day, that almost Easter day, with that heavenly warm wind that sung in the New Jersey sycamores. So I was never so angry that my parents paid him to cut me open, down the middle like a piece of tough meat or tender fruit. Never so furious that I missed first snow. But December gleamed like cool metal on my ruddy, over-bloodied cheeks, made itself go like a damned child dirtying a lit creche. So when that blizzard came like a sign from the soon-to-be-born Christ, I craved in vain to be unbedridden, free of the blasted, heated room 341, where all they let me do was watch a dismal Dolly Parton holiday spectacular, the one where she sings Let It Snow, and her big golden hair frames her warbling cheeks, golden like a Catholic fresco that predicts the end of days with angels and a beating sun. When the doctor unplugged me from the wall, he reminded me about learning to walk and how, at first, I would feel foreign in my own feet, wrong, like the metal they put in me.
poet wrote what Zoe and I thought was a beautiful elegy for a relative. The language is specific, revealing, and tender, and it made us wish we had an uncle like this too. We also loved how tonight featured an Alexander the Great poem, and also now a Keith the Great, pointing out how greatness in military leaders can be quite a different kind than the greatness of a guy who whistles folk tunes to ladybugs. Here's The Philosopher of the Lone Star State by a repeat winner from last year, Nia Tsao of the Dana Hall School. The Philosopher of the Lone Star State, for Uncle Keith. You were the most American I ever knew. We lived in a red brick house on Arbor Gate Drive, where I blew bubbles in the backyard and danced to singing summer cicadas under the supervision of the setting sun. An electric guitar playing, gold chain wearing Odysseus with long blonde hair dyed pink. You were an 80s rock star turned trucker who sailed state to state searching for stories. Before that tired metaphor unraveled within you, you sat on the porch whistling folk tunes for the crowd of ladybugs on leaves, a purple freeze pop in hand because you gave the last red one to me. My mind an eroding memorial, I am trying to recall the exact color of your southern drawl. But time has infiltrated my memories and worn you down to a distant echo. If the Constitution protects life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, why did it not step in to put out the level 5 wildfire blazing in your lungs? You were Keith the Great, who spoke in peculiar English idioms and greeted strangers like old friends, who breathed in struggle and exhaled strength. You were Keith the Great, who made sure I lived amongst the evergreens, and you had no place in that hungry hospital room. The day the doctors told Aunt Vanessa there was nothing left they could do, I wore armor to school and sat in Ms. Womble's ELA class, bracing for the impact. But it never came. Not for a while. You see, grief arrived more like the slow roll of an ocean tide and knocked on my heart. Like the pendulum of incense, the priest with his rosary swung back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I crossed the wooden bridge that separated the parish from the columbarium and stood before your niche. But I knew the man who lived life with his windows rolled down, rested elsewhere. 6 years ago, the red brick house grew quiet, its faucets thirsty, its doors motionless, its curtains drawn. Forgetting once felt easier than remembering. But I now want nothing more than to hear the rumble of your laughter break the silence of a late spring night. You kept my picture day photo in your wallet, and I keep our last image together on the desk where I got into private school, where I realized I wanted to write, where the dreams you once pushed me to achieve became reality. Your love for 90s detective shows, the small things, and slow-moving Sunday mornings survives in me. On a tree-lined road in the northeast of a tranquil Texas town, there lived a great philosopher who rose before I could say goodbye. Thank you so much for your attention these poems. We have one more. This last poem is a ghazal. It's an ancient Persian poem in 2-line stanzas. Not only does each stanza end with the same word called a radif, but right before the radif is a rhyming word called a kafiya. The radif here is ocean, as you'll see. Like the best ghazals, this inventive poem makes us experience that word, ocean, in ways that were previously unfamiliar to us. Here is the wonderful To My Old Friend Marcus by Kristen Young of Convent of the Sacred Heart. To my old friend Marcus. I heard that you married her near the ocean. Whenever I miss you, I hear the ocean. You smile up at me. It's a beautiful picture. Do you ever think of us, dear ocean? Do you remember the warm Caribbean Sea? How each night we cheer the ocean? Sure, there are plenty of fish in the sea, but compared to you, the other fish smear the ocean. Sometimes I resent you and wish we never met. I take my machete and wish to spear the ocean. Why? Because you gave up on us? You left. Do you regret it? Do you still fear the ocean? You were always a coward, too keen to live a lie. I never could. I'm still here, still right here, ocean. My granddaughter is like us, but she fears nothing. They use different words now. We're queer, ocean. So here's to one last goodbye. After all this time, love, Kelvin. P.S. We're the ocean.
So we're almost done, but before we announce our top 3 standout poets, I'd like to take a moment to thank the incredible people who helped make tonight such a success. And I ask that you just hold your applause to the end, because there's quite a few names here. So, first, thank you to all the students who submitted poems to our contest. Without your creativity, bravery, and hard work, this event simply would not be possible. Thank you to our 2 judges, Joe and Zoe, for your enthusiasm for student voices and your dedication to uplifting them. Somehow, the poems always come to life in a new way after hearing your thoughtful commentary, and I'm sure our audience would agree. To our additional speakers tonight, Mr. McSwain, Nyla, Emily, Andrea, Kiona, thank you for sharing your time and words of wisdom. Thank you to Mrs. Brown and the theater crew for setting up this beautiful stage, to Mr. Kipperman for making the live stream possible, and to Mr. Connors and our student musicians who played the piano before the show. A special thanks to Chef Andy and his crew for providing refreshments, Mr. Heck for financial support, Ms. Kathy and Mrs. Coleman for managing supplies, to Elizabeth for designing our beautiful event program, and to Dr. Rigg and Ms. Grasso for their behind-the-scenes help leading up to the festival. And of course, thank you to everyone here tonight, both in person and on the live stream. I truly appreciate everyone's role in making this evening so special. Now we can clap. So now we're going to congratulate the 3 standout poets. We'll have our judges announce them, and then I will give out the trophies for those that are in attendance.
So it was really difficult to, if you thought it was hard to pick the 20, it was really hard to pick the 3 standouts of the 20. But for the first one, we chose this particular poem as a standout for its fresh and sassy language, and also because we liked how the speaker modeled how to crush on someone without being gross. So, congratulations to Lyle Moser from Calhoun for Home. one we chose as a standout because Zoe and I just could not stop talking about it. We have a Google Doc that we share, and we kept commenting, strange, beautiful, listen to this line, and it just kept going. So it really, really got under our skin, and that is Night, Night, Bet I Never by Smiley Wishini from Hamden Hall Country Day School.
And this next standout is another one that I feel like we couldn't stop talking about, and I would like wake up in the night and think about lines from it. So we chose it because of its striking and startling imagery throughout, and for its sureness in itself. We would follow this confident and masterful poet anywhere. And this is Isabella Wu from Pomfret for Siphonophore.
This concludes the 9th Annual Storm King School Poetry Contest and Festival. We ask that those finalists in the audience just come to the stage for a photograph, and I'm sure the judges want to say hi to you. So thank you, everyone.
Now the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. It was a delayed occasion, definitely, but it was an awesome one anyway. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time.